Today we're going to talk about the Transit Duo, and we're going to actually go through it step by step and actually make this thing work with SpeedFusion Cloud. So what I have with me right here is a Transit Duo W. There's the W and the R. The W is a Category 6 version. The R is a Category 12 version. The R is also FirstNet certified. Just for testing and some fun, I do have my UBR Go rugged that Peplink sent me a while ago as a gift for my photos. So I'm going to be kind of showing that off a little bit. And so let's open the box and see what's inside. So the first thing you're going to get is a help guide. It's kind of going to give you like the basic setup instructions, how to get into the web UI and get the SIM cards programmed and things like that. Not the most helpful thing in the world, but it does get you at least into the router. Then you're going to have some stickers, and these stickers are going to give you your serial number and MAC address. The last 8 digits of the MAC address is the default password for your default Wi-Fi. So if you want to know how to get into the Wi-Fi, it is the last 8 digits of the MAC address. It is case sensitive, so it's all uppercase. Then we're going to pull out the router, and what we're going to get is 4 cellular antennas. 1, 2, 3, 4. And a mounting bracket, they can mount it to a wall or something like that. A GPS antenna, a power adapter, and 2 Wi-Fi antennas. So now that we have the instructions, the antennas, GPS, mounting bracket, power, we also have to make sure we have SIM cards. So I've got my trusty Transit here with my 2 SIM cards. So I've got an AT&T SIM card, and I've got a T-Mobile SIM card. These are both 5G SIM cards. The AT&T, this is the new AT&T SIM card, and I'm going to show you. There's a slight bug that Peplink is that we're gonna fix with this too. So just some extra information that you're going to get. So here's what you come in the box. The antennas that come with it are great for like hotspot connectivity, really fast setup. But I highly recommend high gain antennas like the Mobility series, the IoT series, are our new maritime antennas. So, okay, so here's the router. Let's go ahead and open this up real fast. So we have our DC input. This is going to be your 12 volt input as well as your ignition sense. To do the ignition sense, it's actually really easy. All you do is plug in a 12 volt positive that turns on and off with the ignition of the car or vehicle. So when the ignition turns on, the 12 volt turns on. That tells this as like almost like an on button. Then the other 12 volt would be always on, and the router will actually suspend and turn on and off based on the ignition sense setting. So it's a 12 volt that turns on and off with the power, and then a 12 volt that's always on, and that's how the router will turn off. Then you're going to have 2 Ethernet ports, one LAN, one WAN. The WAN port can also be a LAN port. So you're going to have LAN and WAN and then a LAN port. Then you're going to have your 12 volt DC power brick that's going to come with the router. You can plug it in. On the back, we have our 4 antennas, our 4 cellular antennas, and then our 2 Wi-Fi antennas and our GPS. So you have cellular A1, A and B, cellular 2, A and B, GPS, and then Wi-Fi. And then you're going to have, these are going to be your SIM card slots. So if we just unscrew these, there we go. You're going to see 4 slots in the router, in the SIM card slots. Cellular 1, A and B, cellular 2, A and B. So if you only have 2 SIM cards, you're going to make sure you plug in 1A and 2A. The B slots are failover or backup slots. So you can have like AT&T and Verizon, and then Verizon and AT&T, or AT&T, T-Mobile, and T-Mobile and AT&T, or Verizon. So the B slots are your failover slots, and they're going to be used for either adding extra gigabytes if you have like a 50 gig plan and want to have 2 50 gig plans, or having failover from like AT&T to T-Mobile, or Verizon to T-Mobile, or AT&T, etc. These use the 2FF, the standard size SIMs. So it's going to be the biggest of the 3 sizes. So if you get it like a hotspot that has the tiny ones, you're going to need to get SIM adapters that come with those. So let's set it up and get going. So what we're going to do is we're going to install our SIM cards. I'm going to install T-Mobile in slot 1A, and I'm going to install AT&T in slot 2A. When you slide it in, it should click. You see, it's going to be like a spring-loaded click is what you should have. If it doesn't spring-load click, then it's not all the way on. Then you can put this back on and then screw these in. That's going to keep it from popping out, the SIM cards from popping out in transit. Then what we're going to do is hook up our antennas. And then once again, if you have this in an RV or a car or something like that, the external antennas like the Pumas are going to give you higher gain connectivity and better reliability, especially when mobile. So we highly recommend connecting these to a Puma series or another antenna, or I guess it's not Puma anymore, the Mobility series antennas. The perfect antenna for this one, by the way, is the Mobility 42G. That's going to be 4 cellular, 2 Wi-Fi, and GPS. So the Mobility 42G is a perfect fit for the Transit Duo, as well as the Transit 5G or the Transit Cat 18. So I've got my cellular antennas installed, and now I'm going to install my Wi-Fi antennas. Now, once again, these are a little crampy the way they're set up, so be aware that if you are using these antennas, it's not going to be the cleanest. It's really, these are there for programming and testing, but the expectation of the Transit series is mobility, and so Peplink is kind of assuming you're going to install an external antenna. Okay, and then if we click all these up, you'll see here's my, there they are set up right there. So now I'm going to take my power brick and plug it in. There we go. And then it's gonna turn on. You'll see a status light red right there. So you're gonna have status light red, and then you're gonna have cellular 1 and cellular 2. So you're gonna have, it's gonna turn, status light's gonna turn green, then cellular 1's gonna start flashing and then go solid if it's activated, and cellular 2 is gonna start flashing and go solid. And I already told you that there's currently some AT&T SIMs, the newest ones that are white and blue, sometimes will show up as T-Mobile SIMs. So I'll show you how to fix that too. So now that this is set up, we're going to go to our computer. Now I recommend hardwiring into the laptop, into the Transit Duo, instead of trying to program it via wireless. If you do it via wireless, and every time it reboots, you have to then use the password. So I'm going to show you both ways, but it is important to know if you have a laptop with a wired connection, it's going to be a little bit easier to program the router. Otherwise, you can connect to the wireless SSID. It's going to be PepWave, and then the last 4 digits of the serial number, and then the password is the last 8 digits of the LAN MAC address, which you can either get on the sticker that comes with it, or on the bottom of the router, you'll see the LAN MAC address, the last 8 digits without the dashes. So you see here, my cellular 1 is already connected to T-Mobile. My cellular 2, I've got to change the APN for AT&T. So cool thing about this training is I'm going to show you also how to do the APNs. So I have my laptop, and I'm going to connect to this thing wirelessly. So I'm going to click on my wireless network here. I'm going to show available wireless networks, and I should see a Peplink. There it is. And then the last 4 digits of the serial number on this one, 2B5A. There it is. So here's my Transit Duo. So I'm going to click connect. And then all I'm going to do is put in the last 8 digits of the MAC address without the dashes. So it's going to be, it is all capitals. There's no lowercase and no dashes. Okay, and I'm connected to the wireless network. Now I can open up Internet Explorer and go to 192.168.50.1. I'm going to click Advanced and Continue. And then the default admin username and password is admin, then admin. And then it's going to prompt you to change the password. So you're going to put in admin again. And then you're going to give it a new password. There we go. Hit OK. And now you're in the PepWave or the router dashboard. You'll see that I've got my T-Mobile connected and my AT&T is sitting there at obtaining IP address. If your AT is sitting there at obtaining IP address, click the details to the left or to the right of the cellular settings, cellular name. And you'll see that it's here, it says AT&T, but then you see down here it says under cellular settings, APN, fast.tmobile.com. Click custom, and you can change this to broadband. That's AT&T's APN. And then hit save and apply, and that should connect right away to the AT&T network. Okay, so now that we are in the router, we have our 2 SIM cards set up. The first thing we're going to do, especially if we want to take advantage of SpeedFusion Cloud or any SpeedFusion settings, is make sure this thing is running the latest firmware and is capable of activating SpeedFusion Cloud in the first place. So this one, as you can see, comes with 8.0.2, build 4407. So we're going to go ahead and update the firmware. And you can see there's my AT&T connecting at LTE-A. While we wait for that to connect, on the dashboard you have your WAN connection status. So the priority of the WAN is the priority in which the WANs will take over. So for example, if I were to plug an Ethernet cable into my Ethernet WAN port, the cellular settings in priority 2 will go to standby state, meaning that they will no longer be actively using, the router won't be actively using them to transport data. So it's a great way to lower the overhead or the cost of your connections if you have other connections. You also have Wi-Fi WAN. You see it's Wi-Fi WAN 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. So I can actually drag this Wi-Fi WAN up to priority 1, and what it's going to do is it's going to let me use the Wi-Fi as an internet connection. And if I drag it to priority 2, it's going to stay connected with my cellular. So I'm going to do that just so I don't lose my cellular connections. So you can go to wireless networks. You can click on a wireless network that you'd like to use. You can put in the password, hit save, and then you can connect to that wireless network. And then hit close, and it should connect to that wireless network. You can see my AT&T is connected. So I've got my T-Mobile, my AT&T, and then I've got my Wi-Fi. Now, if I've already tried to connect to a network, I can click details next to Wi-Fi, and I can verify that it saved those settings. And there's my West Net, so it is there, so it should connect in a few seconds then. So I put my password wrong, so I click details, and then I click on the name here at the bottom under Wi-Fi connection profiles, and then I can update that password. And then hit save and apply, and now it'll try the new password. So if I type my password wrong, I can just click details, scroll down to the bottom, and you'll see Wi-Fi connection profiles. These are all the memorized wireless profiles that you have saved. Click on the Wi-Fi name, and then you can update the password right here. And you can also check this hide characters to show the password in clear text so that you can verify the password is typed right. And now that I've typed the password right, I have my West Net. So now I'm connected to T-Mobile, AT&T, and my West Net Wi-Fi. So the first thing I'm going to do now is update the firmware. So I'm going to go to System, Firmware, check for firmware, download and upgrade, hit OK, and I'm going to download the latest firmware and upgrade it to the latest firmware. Now, in order to do SpeedFusion Cloud, you have to activate the router on in control. So what it's doing now is downloading the latest firmware and upgrading it to 8.1.3. I will reboot the router once it's done. You can see here it says unable to reach the web admin because my Wi-Fi got disconnected. So once the Wi-Fi reconnects, I'll know the router's back online. And I can also look at the status of the router and see that the status is green and the cellulars are not yet lit up, so it's still booting up. It's important if you're updating the firmware to just let it do its thing. You don't want to interrupt that process. So if I refresh my screen, hit advanced, continue. Now you could do all of this inside in control, and that's going to be the next thing we're going to do. So this router, once it has, if you have one working SIM card, you actually don't have to log in like we're doing at all. As long as it has an active internet connection that works, you can actually just connect this right into the in control platform. And you don't even need to worry about logging in manually. However, if you need to program your SIM cards or make them work, you want to do that. So let's go over the GUI first, and then we're going to go into in control. So now that I've updated the firmware to 8.1.3, you'll see now that I have SpeedFusion Cloud right here. So I can click SpeedFusion Cloud. I can actually get my activation key if I want to and try to activate it, which I'll show you in a minute. And then once you activate it, you'll be able to choose your cloud location, which I'll show you as well. So then we go to our network tab. The network tab is where you can set up your LAN and WAN network settings. So here I can set my IP address if I want to change it from 192.168.50 to something else. I can also change my port settings. So if I do want to use both of these Ethernet ports as a LAN ports instead of WAN, I can actually click here and turn this WAN port into LAN port 2, for example. And then I just click enable and save, and now I have 2 LAN ports. Captive portal is a great way to add a captive portal to your network. You just click here, enable it, and then you can set the options, like the quota, either time or get megabits, when the quota resets, inactive timeout, what networks are allowed, what clients are allowed, what splash page you want them to use, pop-up handling for like Android and iOS devices, and logout host name, and then you can preview and customize the splash page right there. And then for the WAN, this is going to let you manage the WANs just like you did in that dashboard, just like you would see in the dashboard. However, at the very bottom here, you have the IPv6. So if you need to do an IPv6 WAN, you can actually click this edit button, click enable, and then select your Ethernet WAN, hit save, and now that Ethernet WAN is an IPv6 compatible WAN. That's the network settings, super easy. You have the LAN, IP addresses, static routes, DNS proxy, Bonjour forwarding. Then you have your port settings, and then you have your captive portal options. Then the advanced is where you're going to configure, you can configure PepVPN with SpeedFusion. You basically would give it a name, a MAX Transit Duo or whatever. Then you can create your profile. So new profile, you put in the remote, like a SpeedFusion to Office. You put in the remote ID, balance, STX, the remote name, which you can get the Find My IP from InControl, or just put in the public IP address, and then choose your settings and hit save. IPsec tunnels, these are for advanced users, but you can configure IPsec tunnels, and if you are looking for those options, here they are. And then you can also create GRE tunnels, and once again, if you're just looking for those options, here they are. Name active, remote GRE IP address, tunnel IP, local IP address, tunnel remote IP address, subnet mask connection, and remote networks. Outbound policies is how we do traffic shaping. This is actually how you tell the router to use the different internet connections. So for example, I can add a rule that says if the destination domain name is netflix.com, priority, only use my Wi-Fi and my Ethernet WAN. Don't use the cellular. So what you're doing is you're saying, if it's Netflix, use the Ethernet WAN, 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz. And then if not, then drop the traffic. That way you're not using Netflix over cellular. And I'll show you other types of rules, but outbound policies is how you tell the router how to use the different internet connections that you have. Port forwarding is how you can create inbound port forwarding. It is important with port forwarding to know that you cannot port forward a dynamic IP address. If you're getting a cellular IP address that's 10.105 or 192.168, you're not going to be able to port forward over that IP address. Most consumer internet connections don't allow inbound port forwarding anyways. Mappings, you can set your NAT options, so you can add a NAT rule that says NAT this LAN IP address to this cellular IP address or this public IP address, and it'll create a NAT map. QoS, we have user groups. You can have 3 user groups. You can have manager, staff, and guest, and you can add either an IP address or an entire subnet to each one of those groups. Once you've defined your user groups, you can then enable either group bandwidth reservation, which allows you to designate a certain amount of bandwidth to each group of users, or you can throttle, set a bandwidth limit to each group of users. So the managers are unlimited, the staff can have 10 megabits of download and 2 megabits of upload, and guests get 5 megabits of download and 1 megabit of upload type thing. And then you have QoS application. This is great if you want to add like VoIP, and then you can have VoIP and add it and then say high priority. So voice over IP is going to be higher priority than video streaming or other things like that. And so you can choose any level of application, and we even have web applications, and then you can scroll down and see all the different web applications that we have available for use. And so you can add QoS to your applications. Firewall rules, pretty simple. You have outbound rules. These are rules from your LAN out the internet connection, so out your cellular or your WAN connections. or Wi-Fi WAN. Inbound is coming from an internet connection into your LAN. Internal is from LAN to LAN or LAN to VPN. So it's anything routing inside your network. Intrusion detection and DOS prevention allows you to add DOS and intrusion techniques to the firewall. So it's just going to try to block those actions. Then we have content blocking. We have a huge array of applications that you can block. Like for example, you can block DNS over HTTPS so that you can block anonymizers. You can also block ad-aware or pornography, or you can customize the domains. If you are doing content blocking, make sure you check this box that says update the database automatically. And then you can exempt the managers group or a group of users from content blocking, or you can exempt subnets, or you could exempt specific domains. So if you do have a domain that's blocked and you want to allow it, you can exempt it right here. We also support routing protocols, OSPF and RIP, as well as BGP. Those are advanced protocols. If you know how to use those, then great. We also support remote user authentication. Remote user authentication allows you to create either an L2TP VPN or an open VPN. We also support PPTP, but almost every operating system has now blocked that as an insecure VPN topology. So L2TP VPN, you can select your interfaces, and then you can create local user accounts. Test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then you can create a local user account, and then you can allow people to connect in via L2TP with IPsec, or more easily, you can do OpenVPN, and then you go to your status page, and then you can download a copy of the profile. Pretty cool, but once again, you need to have a public IP address assigned to the router, so that needs to be plugged into a cable modem, or have cellular connections that have static IP addresses assigned to them in order to do the remote user access. Almost all of our Peplink routers support high availability, meaning you can take two of these routers and combine them to make one really highly available router. You can use radius servers for authentication protocols. We have a certificate management manager, so you can upload custom certificates for our IPsec VPN, Web Admin SSL, Captive Portal SSL, or OpenVPN certificate authority. We also offer service forwarding as a way of overriding particular services like SMTP forwarding, which basically lets you send a specific, if SMTP traffic goes out one of these internet connections, go to this destination service and port. Web proxy forwarding, DNS forwarding, and then customer service forwarding setup. Service pass-through is inbound, and the idea is being able to make sure that the router allows that traffic to pass through fine. Any of our routers with a GPS, you can enable GPS forwarding, and you can have multiple destinations for the GPS forwarding. So you can send the GPS forwarding, but you can only do NEMA or TIAP, and that would be all of them. So you can do NEMA and select the options, or TIAP and select the options, and then you can do a TIAP ID, or you can do a vehicle ID under NEMA. The serial interface, this is what we were talking about, serial to network. This feature allows you to actually use an out-of-band management for like connecting to a legacy RS-232 or like a Cisco switch, and it requires an accessory that you plug into the LAN that allows serial port management. Network time server allows you to enable our Peplink controlled network time server. All of our routers now have built-in network time server capabilities. And then grouped networks allows you to group IP addresses for easier firewall or content or outbound policy management. That's the entire advanced settings. I know that's a lot to go through, and I just kind of breezed through it. We are working on detailed individual options for those, but I just wanted to make sure you understand what options are available in the Transit Duo, and that this is a full functioning firewall router, not just a basic hotspot. Then we can go to our access point. The access point is interesting because you can manage this in control or locally on the device. So if you're just setting this up and you don't want to use in control or the cloud platform, you can just change it right here. So right here we have our PepWave with the Wi-Fi that we connected to right here. I can either add a new SSID, Transit Duo, give it a Wi-Fi name and password, WPA2, and set up a password. And then I can create the options that I want to allow. Or I can just click on the existing one and change the name and password, or add the new one and delete the old one. See, so now I have just my Transit Duo Wi-Fi. So you can customize your Wi-Fi settings under the AP wireless SSID. If you're going to use our meshing topology, here you'd create the Transit Duo would be the the mesh host in a sense. It's going to be kind of the first AP, and then you could configure additional APs. It's important if you're creating a mesh that you're going to add your profile. Test mesh. You're going to choose either 2.4 or 5 gigahertz and then give it a pre-shared key. Then, once you do that, in order to make this actually work, you got to go to settings and you've got to choose the mesh in the profile. See, disabled, test mesh. So your profile, your AP profile must have the test mesh chosen in order for that to actually function. So just creating a mesh will not work. You have to go to settings, edit your profile, and choose test mesh to be used. Then every additional access point that you connect needs to have those same settings. The easiest way to do this is to just plug the access points into the device and actually have them download the settings themselves from the access point manager. But if you need to just, if you grab another one of our APs, plug it in, log into it manually, and then make sure you set that, the mesh name, ID, frequency, and shared key all have to match. And then in the settings, you have to make sure you choose the test mesh or the name of the mesh to be used. Both of those things have to be set in order for the meshing to work. Then you have your status, and this is just going to give you information about it. So it's going to tell you how many clients are connected and how they're connected. It's going to give you a list of all your access points, just the Transit Duo, but you can have multiple access points. It's going to give you your SSID, APs, and how many clients are on it and how much bandwidth they're using. It's going to show you your wireless clients, and you can see there's my laptop and connected to the wireless device. Then you can get your status. So if you're using mesh networking and you want to see that it's actually working, you'd go to AP mesh under controller status mesh WDS, and you can see your mesh peers right here. And then you have an event log, and that's going to show you what's going on and kind of a history of what's happening. And then your nearby devices is going to show you nearby wireless access points and names. And the toolbox lets you update firmware, but that actually is being expired, so I'm not going to talk about it. The System tab allows you to customize the username and password, as well as authentication and how you're going to log into the router. The firmware option allows you to update the firmware, which I did when I first launched this router. Time allows you to customize the time zone as well as the time server capabilities. Schedule allows you to create schedules. This allows you to actually apply schedules to Wi-Fi and other settings. So in other words, you can say, this SSID is only available Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. And so here you would create a schedule and then tell the SSID or the profile to only be available on the schedule. Email notifications, you do need an active SMTP. I don't recommend using this feature. I recommend using In Control, but we do allow it. You just need to have your SMTP, username, password, sender email address, and recipient email address, and then the event logs and different logs can be sent via email. But once again, if you just use In Control, it's going to be way, way easier. The event log lets you send events to different servers. So you can do send events to a remote syslog server. You can push events via the app. You can enable URL logging that goes to a log host, and you can enable session logging that goes to a log host. So if you have an SIEM or security server that you'd like to send this information to, you can send your events, your URL, and your sessions all to an SIEM or other security appliance. We do support SNMP 1, 2, 3, and TRAP. You can actually enable SMS control. This allows you to text your router and give it and send it commands. So you can see here, and then you can go to the knowledge base and get a copy of the commands. In Control allows you to enable and disable In Control. I highly recommend using In Control. It's incredibly powerful and allows for easy mobile management and tracking of your devices, which we'll go over in a second. Configuration, if you want to download a copy of your active configuration or restore a previous configuration or factory reset the router, you're going to do that by the System Configuration tab. Feature add-on, if Peplink sends you a license key to activate a specific feature like SpeedFusion Cloud or anything like that, you can do that right here. You can also reboot the router to a previous firmware. This is pretty important. Every time you update the firmware, there's actually 2 copies. So say if I update to 8.1.3 and it's not working well, and I want to update to another version, first, reboot to the old 8.02, hit reboot, then upgrade. This way, you keep that known good firmware, and then 8.1.3 can be overwritten. If I update to 8.1.3, then update again, Now 8.1.3 moves to 8.1.8.0.2, and then the new firmware gets uploaded and you lose the old firmware. But there are two firmwares, so if one firmware is not working, you can restore back to a previous firmware. Then we have tools like ping, traceroute, wake on LAN, and WAN analysis. These allow us to test the quality of our internet connection. So you can do a ping test out of a specific circuit, you can do a traceroute out of a circuit, or you can do a WAN analysis. This is a pretty advanced thing, and there'll be a dedicated video just for WAN performance analysis testing. The status allows you to see the device status, the serial number, download a diagnostic report, or turn on remote assistance if Peplink asks for support. Active session to see what's going on in your router and what data is being used. Client list shows you who's on it. Once you also have a client list, click the tag there to add a DHCP reservation. This ensures that my laptop always has this IP address. Or you can click this and ban the wireless client. It's a new feature that's come to Peplink. So if I want to kick somebody off my wireless, I can click that and it'll kick them off the wireless. I can go to OSPF and RIP and see the status of my OSPF. I can see the status of my BGP. I can see my active event log. And then I can monitor my WAN quality. So I can pull up Cellular 1 and have a little WAN quality and latency monitoring for my Cellular 1, my Cellular 2, and my Wi-Fi WAN 2.4 gigahertz. And that's the basic gist of the router UI. So the next thing is actually setting up SpeedFusion Cloud. And in order to do that, you have to have an active subscription and the router has to be properly registered. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to In Control 2. I'm going to create a new group. I'm going to add the serial number of my router to In Control. So I'm going to go to Status, grab my serial number. It's also on that little barcode that comes with the router. It's also on the box and on the bottom of the router. So you should always, the serial number is pretty easy to find. Give it a name. Go to my group overview. And now I have this router in Control, and I should be able to pull it up. Once it shows up online, you're going to be able to pull it up and get the status of it in Control. So adding to In Control is really easy. I just created a group, added it. If I want to add more devices, I can go to Add Devices. And I'm doing a whole training on In Control, but this video is primarily about the Transit Duo. There you go. And so now the router's online. You can see the firmware there, the activation date. Now, if this router was activated, eventually what you should see is that it's going to give you the SpeedFusion Cloud. So I'm actually going to pull up a different router and show you that. You see this feature activation, SpeedFusion Cloud. That's what we need to see. So you can see here I got my SpeedFusion peers, my SpeedFusion Cloud peers. So once your SpeedFusion Cloud is activated, and if you need help activating your SpeedFusion Cloud, just contact wherever you purchased it from or reach out to West Networks support. We're more than happy to help you get it activated. Once your SpeedFusion Cloud is activated, you're going to see this. It's going to say choose your cloud location. Basically, in order to have activated SpeedFusion Cloud, you simply just have to have the router purchased with an active Prime Care or warranty, and you're going to have it automatically pushed down from In Control when the device to In Control. So then we go to SpeedFusion Cloud, choose our location. I just choose automatic, but you can choose any location you want. Hit the checkbox, and you can actually choose multiple locations if you want to, but automatic for most people is going to be fine. Now, there is something that makes SpeedFusion Cloud work a little bit better, and it's kind of tricky. So up in the top here, you're going to see this long URL, and you're going to see index.cgi. What you want to do is you want to change index.cgi to support. So you change index to support. This is going to take you to kind of a secret admin window within Peplink. And you're going to see something that says SpeedFusion Cloud Traffic Distribution Mode. Click here. This is going to enable something called dynamic weighted bonding. This is really good, especially for cellular options, to be able to increase the performance of cellular bonding. So once you have that enabled, then you're going to click on SFC, and then you're going to see this thing that says Traffic Distribution Policy. Change this to dynamic weighted bonding, and then hit Save and Apply. And once you do that, it's going to activate SpeedFusion Cloud VPN. Once it's once the SpeedFusion Cloud VPN is activated, so if you want to customize your outbound policies even better, what you want to do is go in your in-control group with your router, go to Network Settings, Outbound Policy. If you create outbound policies inside in-control, we can actually do SAS policies. So say I want to use bonding, but only for Zoom and Teams meetings and Google Chat, not for everything, because I don't want the Netflix and things like that to have a problem. So I can create a rule set, say default, and then I can add a rule that says SAS applications. And I can say if the source is anything, the destination is a SAS, and here I can then choose G Suite, Microsoft, Zoom, Lifesize, Salesforce, and protocol any, algorithm, priority. I like that algorithm. And I can say PEP VPN, and I can type in the name of that tunnel, that's SpeedFusion Cloud. Remember, go back to this, go back to dashboard. My SpeedFusion Cloud name is SFC. If you choose a custom location like Atlanta, it's going to be SFC-ATL. So that has to match here. So SFC, and then I can say fail through the next rule just in case SpeedFusion Cloud is not available, and terminate on a recovery. Now what this is doing is saying SaaS applications are going to use SpeedFusion Cloud. Everything else is going to use the internet. Then I can create another rule that says fastest response. Source any, destination any, protocol any, fastest response, and I can say, and once again, it's very specific, so I have to come in here and I can say WAN, cellular 1, cellular 2, and then Wi-Fi WAN 2.4 gigahertz. The names all have to be exactly the same. So that's Wi-Fi WAN on 2.4 gigahertz is the name of that wireless network right there. And if you click details, I can copy this, Control C, close. So then I can create an outbound policy that says fastest response time, and I can say use my WAN, use cellular 1, use cellular 2, and then use my Wi-Fi WAN on 2.4 gigahertz. So now what's going to happen with this new policy, drag this down below, it's top down. So it says if the destination is G Suite, Office 365, Zoom, Lifesize, or cell phones, use bonding. Otherwise, use whichever internet connection is the fastest. So outbound policies get a little tricky. I'm going to create an entire discussion just on outbound policies, but I wanted to let you know that you can't once you enable bonding, you then need to make sure that the policy supports the bonding. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So anyways, I know this is a long video, and I hope it creates some value to people. But if you have any questions, please reach out for help. If you want to see some more videos or more in-depth videos, please let me know. But this is the Transit Duo W with dual cellular connectivity and Wi-Fi WAN activated. Just set up guide. And thank you very much, and have a great day.